Hi, I'm Skip Nipper. Welcome to my podcast, where I tell you about not only Nashville's great baseball history and traditions,
shot to right, a one-hop liner,
but certainly about its past. And you will hear a little bit about its present and future, too.
Yes, he can. It makes the waist-high catch.
There are great stories about Tom Wilson Park, Herschel Greer Stadium, Sulphur Dell, and the players, coaches, and fans who love everything about baseball. And every once in a while, you will get to hear from a special guest who will share their fondness and even passion for the great game.
The high fly ball down the right field corner, going way back, hits a lead-off home run.
Today's Nashville Baseball History Podcast is about someone you may or may not have heard of, depending on your age. If you have not, but your family is from Nashville, I will guarantee probably your father and certainly your grandfather will know the name Johnny Beazley. And my special guest today is his son, Terry Beazley, who unquestionably knows who his father is. And I want to welcome him. Terry, thank you for being on with me. I'd love to talk about your dad.
You're quite welcome.
Tell us about you, first of all, where you live and your family, and just a little bit about you.
I live in Spring Hill, Tennessee. I've been here 3 years now. Previous 15 years in Franklin, and previous to that, 11 more years in Franklin, and previous to that, 21 years in Brentwood.
Now,
so I've been on this end of the town and driven further and further away.
And what was your career? What did you do?
I was a retail managed automobile companies and whatever.
And your wife and children?
She did real estate. She was real estate sales for about 21 years.
And what's her name?
Linda Beazley.
Linda. And your children? You have children?
Yes, I have 2 children. I have my daughter lives here in Spring Hill, and she works for a large timber producer, LG.
Yeah.
And she's been there for quite some time. She's a smart girl. And
that's good.
My son lives in Dallas, or Frisco, by the way. And he is a landscape contractor and has been forever. He graduated from UT with a degree in horticulture and landscape design. So he's been doing that all his life. But he's about 52 now. And he's married, and I have 2 grandchildren on that side and 2 on my daughter's side.
I'm familiar with Frisco. I have a daughter that lives in McKinney.
That's close.
And a son that lives in Plano. My daughter was just here last weekend.
Okay.
I always enjoy their visits. That place has grown by leaps and bounds. So, well, let's dig a little bit deeper into your father's career. I want to hear about you, certainly, but your father's career, as this is a Nashville baseball history podcast, and I try to limit it to that, and pick out particular members of the baseball community who were known for their baseball career in the city. So let me say this. Your dad, Johnny Beazley, was born in Nashville on May the 25th, 1918, and he attended Hume Fogg and Cone high schools. And though he must have loved baseball, didn't he also have a dream of becoming a boxer?
He did. And he did it for a short period of time until my grandmother, his mother, put a stop to it. She was afraid he was going to get hurt. No, that's the story.
but certainly baseball won out, and I'm sure she was happy about that. What can you say about his family? I know he had a brother named Felix. Anything about how he grew up?
Well, Felix only lived for like 17 years. He was killed in a football accident at Cone Junior High School, and it was of course a long time ago, but they just didn't take care of him when it happened, and he died the next morning of brain clots, blood clots in his brain, and all that. And my dad picked him up at the locker room, and everybody had left, and he was passed out in the shower at school after the game, and he put him on the bike as best as he could and took him back home, and then they had to take him to the hospital, and he died the next morning.
Oh my. Was he younger or older?
He was younger. He was 2 years younger. And he was, they said that he was the best athlete in the family. And, of course, I've never met him and know very little about him except for mostly that. But he was, of quite an athlete, and that was about 1937, I think.
Were there any other brothers or sisters?
No,
Yeah.
no, just him.
Your dad attended a baseball school at Sulphurdale that kind of kicked off his baseball career. Do you remember him talking about that?
Yeah, he doesn't talk a lot about anything, but that was the first more or less break that he got. It was one of those, they used to have them. I remember them at Sulphurdale all the time. Cincinnati used to have a lot of them. Here, well, they're searching for talent, and he had just been pitching a short period of time, and he decided to go down there and try out. And he was picked, he was chosen, and he immediately started playing professional baseball.
He was not a pitcher, I don't think. I don't think his Hume Fogg was it. Hume Fogg, his baseball coach, did not really have him pegged as a pitcher, and some of the players told how good he was, and he started.
Yeah,
pitching.
he was an outfielder, and that was at Hume Fogg, and so they brought him out of the outfield and put him as a pitcher, a starting pitcher, and his first game was with Franklin, Tennessee, Franklin High School, and he won that game 9-0. I'll remember that.
Oh yeah. Well, undoubtedly, when he signed this contract, was it with the Nashville Vols? Because I couldn't find any kind of an affiliation. I think he went to Florida, Leesburg, maybe Florida, in his first pro season.
There were quite a few of those little towns that he visited in his. I think he was in the minor leagues, AA, AAA, and all that for like 4 years.
Yeah.
Before he was called up to St. Louis.
Yeah. Back in those days, it was D, I think. I actually went down further, but I think D League, and then it moved up. And then that's kind of how the progression went there. He went to Leesburg, Florida, in the Florida State League, and then Tallahassee in the Florida Alabama League, I think that same year. Of course, they moved him around a lot. Do you know, was there a certain scout that signed him? Do you know? I couldn't find anything. Sometimes you can look online and it'll say what scout signed him, but I couldn't see anything.
I don't know. I don't have any idea.
I know at that baseball school, there were several professional players that probably were scouts. One of them was Chuck Dressen, who had been the Nashville Vols manager, and Cincinnati Reds had a great affiliation with them for a long period of time, but I could not find anything about what scout may have signed him. Yeah, for the next 2 years, he played for several teams, mostly at Class D, but in 1939 was with Montgomery and then New Orleans in the Southern Association, and became a St. Louis Cardinals farmhand in 1940 when the Pelicans changed affiliations from, I think, Cleveland Indians in 39 and 1940 to St. Louis. And that had a big impact. That really changed things for your dad, didn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really did. He was there. He went up in 1941 for the last part of the season when they usually bring a lot of minor league players up, and had a pretty good end of the year thing. And then started out in spring training with the Cardinals in 1942.
Yeah. In New Orleans in 41, he was 16-12. That was his best season in the minors.
Mm-hmm.
Now he tops that pretty quickly, but Ray Blades was his manager. And I was reading that Blades taught your father what he said, how to truly pitch, that there was more to pitching than just throwing the ball.
Right.
You remember him saying anything about Ray Blades?
Yeah, I remember. I don't remember him saying anything about the person, but I remember him telling about why or how he changed. He changed him, his pitching motion, his choice of pitches. He learned. He said the most important thing he ever learned was a changeup, and he pushed that on me too, as far as learning a changeup. And so he really got a lot of his experience and knowledge out of that year he was in New Orleans.
That's interesting. What you said a few weeks ago, I saw Charlie Mitchell, who was signed by the Boston Red Sox, his brother John also, and they were both signed by a scout named George Digby. You may remember that name. And I asked Charlie what advice Digby had for him, and he said the best pitch is a changeup. Now, that isn't that interesting? And you said that
Mhm.
about your dad and what he taught you also. Another interesting point I thought was who was I talking to? Jim Maloney told me that he was in Topeka the year before he came to Nashville. And I think it was Topeka, could have been Wichita, and his manager was Johnny Vandermeer, who had two straight no hitters. And he said the next year he came to Nashville, Jim Turner in 1960, who had been the pitching coach for the New York Yankees all those years with all those World Series championships, immediately picked up that he was tipping his pitches. And he said his career was never the same. So those coaches do have some kind of an impact
Mm-hmm.
on baseball careers. But your dad seemed to have been plagued with arm trouble.
Well, he wasn't plagued with arm trouble until after 1942, and from about 1943 or 1944, I don't know, remember which year it was after he hurt his arm. He never was the same, although he still had a winning record and a good earned run average. He wasn't the same as he was, and he finished with Boston.
Yeah. So in,
Boston.
in 1942, he was called up to spring training with the Cardinals, and his season was nothing short of spectacular. Really was. And I'll kind of let you take it from there. But let me say he was 21-6 on the season. As you mentioned, a great ERA. I think it was second in the National League, 2.13. And
Mm-hmm.
his teammates were another rookie with Stan Musial, but
Mm-hmm.
also Enos Slaughter. And I think the Cardinals were 106-48, which is pretty darn good if you can hit that
Yeah.
100 mark. So he had that pretty good season. Now, I could go into a lot of detail about things that I've read about him during the season, but the real meat of the story is the World Series. Can you tell us about that?
Well, of course, I wasn't there, but
Uh-oh.
and he didn't do a lot of talking about it. But I can understand from what I've heard from different people and all that he was 100% dedicated to what he was trying to do. He had been his family had broken up basically when he was about 12 years old, and his father just left and never showed back up. I have never met my grandfather, although he did come through Nashville a few times, mainly when he was broke. And Daddy would give him money and wouldn't allow him to see any of us, any of the kids. He was really dedicated because everything he was doing was coming back home. Anything he made was coming back home to his mother.
Yeah.
And I think he lived on per diem checks and things like that when he was there.
Right. Well, they go to the World Series and they play the New York Yankees, the defending series champs and winners of 5 of the previous 6 fall classics.
Mm-hmm.
The Yankees took the opener at St. Louis, and your dad was dubbed by the Cards to try to even things up at home in game 2. And he did pretty well. Do you remember what he did? He had 34,255 on hand, and the Cardinals spotted him a 2-run lead and another tally in the 7th, but he held the Yankees scoreless until the top of the 8th. And let's see, in the bottom of the frame, Slaughter hit a 2-out double. Musial singled him home, and it was a 4-3 lead, but they won.
Right.
He pulled a Lucky Brown's rabbit foot out of his pocket and told gathered reporters that a female fan had given it to him. And one of the writers wrote, he grips the ball so hard his hand quivers for a half hour after each game. So, but the Bees, it said, had plenty on the ball. And the Bees was chosen, Billy Southworth chose him, his manager, for the second game. And they took, he was walloped for 10 hits, got into one jam after another, but at last out, he was still on the mound, the first rookie to win a series game since Paul Dean trimmed the Detroit Stars. So he did not win that first game, but he did the next one.
Mm-hmm.
Did he ever talk about that? Did he ever mention? I've talked to plenty of family members who said their dads never really talked about their careers because
He didn't. No, he really didn't talk about it. Like I told you earlier, if I learned something about it, it was because I asked somebody that would have known what went on. I know he was a little hot-headed, determined, and there's a story, and I forget whether it was the first game, the second game he pitched, or the first game he pitched, or the second game he pitched, where Southworth came out to talk to him, and he told him, well, let me worry about the batter, and you go worry about the ball game. And then he finished the game. So it was quite common back then for a pitcher to pitch 9 innings, and now they just pitch 5.5 and they're gone. But so he did pretty good. He had a long his innings pitched per game was pretty good. It was like 7.5 or 8 innings average per game, and earned run average was good, and he was second that year to Mort Cooper, who had a 1.77 average, I believe.
Right. Yep. I think that's right. Yeah. Finished second. Yeah, that was pretty good. But in the game to take the World Series win, Johnny was surrounded by reporters in the Cardinals locker room, along with a special guest. Do you know who that was? Babe Ruth burst into the proceedings and exclaimed, "Where's that guy that whooped my Yankees?"
Yeah, I've heard that, yes.
And shaking the great Bambino's hand, I was trying to make that connection to his hands were shaking, was a cherished Beazley memory that lasted a lifetime. I think that's pretty special.
I do too.
Yeah. And let's see, as a rookie, he was a hero of the 42 World Series. His playoff share was $6,100.
Mm-hmm.
What did he do with that? Do you know?
He sent it to my mother.
Sent it to Mama.
I mean, his mother. Yeah.
Oh, his mama. Yeah, right. Yeah. But he was soon, and this is where the arm trouble comes. He was soon to be known as Corporal Beazley.
Mm-hmm.
Because can you tell me about his military service and how it impacted his return to baseball? It was 4 years later, 1946.
He was he went into the military 2 or 3 months after the season ended, I've been told. And he went in as a corporal. Shortly after that, he went to Officer Candidate School, and then he was a lieutenant. And I think when he got out, he was a captain.
Right.
But he didn't talk about that a lot, except the fact that he hurt his arm in the military and never was the same again.
Yeah, they would create those teams for the military, and they would entertain the troops and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And but he got hurt his arm,
right,
in one of those games. When he came back, he undoubtedly didn't impress the Cardinals very much. In 1947, as the season began, he rejoined manager Billy Southworth, who had been his manager in 42. And he was in Boston with the Braves, and they were in the National League, of course, in those days. Do you ever talk about Southworth or any of his teammates? Did he ever mention any of those guys?
He talked about Mort Cooper a lot, and Terry Moore. I think Terry Moore was the right fielder, and Mort Cooper was a pitcher. But he talked about them a lot as far as the Cardinals are concerned.
Yeah.
In fact, I was named after both of them, and.
Yeah, that's interesting. Did he have any other teammates he stayed in touch with over the years? Would you have met any of those other guys?
Later on when he was in business, I had met a few of them. When they'd come through Nashville, they would stop by his place of business, and if I happened to be there, I could meet him. Ernie White was one of them that I remember a lot. Roger Hornsby's son was a representative of Falstaff Brewing Company, and he came by a lot, and I talked to him a few times. Dizzy Dean used to stay at our house when he would come through.
Wow.
And they would sit there for hours and tell lies. And I would sneak around. I was young at the time, and I would sneak around and get as close as I could and lay on the floor and try to listen to what all they were saying.
Of course, I would too. Yeah, Ernie White was in that team, I guess, in 42.
Right.
And became the Nashville Vols manager.
Mm-hmm.
And about, was that 1950? I can't remember. So I'm sure there were some good conversations at the ballpark before or after the games at Suffordale. His major league career, your dad's statistics include a 31-12 record over 6 years. And he has another connection, not only to Ernie White, but also to the Nashville Vols, because in 1949, he pitched in 5 games and was 1-3. Where I read it was because of his arm injury. Was he still suffering about that? Did he talk about that later? Or talk about his days at Sufferdale? It was a short season for him, 5 games.
Yeah, not really that I remember. He was reluctant to give up baseball, but I think he figured out that would be the best thing to do. So he spent a short time there, then that was it as far as his baseball career was concerned. But he never did talk about it.
His last pro years were 1950 and 51, but in 50, I think he had begun a career with Falstaff, that you mentioned earlier, in his hometown as general manager.
Right.
And he purchased the company and ran it until 1972.
Right.
Now, did it have his name on it? I don't remember exactly.
Yeah, it was Johnny Beazley's Falstaff Distributing Company.
There you go. And he was well known for that. Popular guy in town back in those days, I'm sure.
He brought them back from basically a 3 or 4 ranked beer in town to number 1, and he did it by going out and meeting all the owners of the grocery stores, the bars, wherever beer was sold, and it just kind of blossomed, and it was that way until the late 60s, and he had to take on a bunch of more beers to keep it going. But he had a lot of ex-baseball players working for him. Yeah. And so then I think Falstaff sent a representative down and they were talking to him about his sales force, and they said, well, you're going to have to get rid of this one and this one and this one, and that didn't work at all. And so he told them that he wasn't going to do that, and if they needed to take the brand away, that would be fine.
And that happened in around 1972 or so?
A little bit before that.
Yeah. Did he continue to play any ball at all? I know some of those guys come back from the pros and were able to play in Nashville City League or Tri-State League. Did he do that or coach?
I think he did. I remember him playing one time that I went to, and it was at Centennial Park.
Yeah.
And I don't remember what league it was or what team it was, but he played a couple of things. He didn't really play very long doing that.
Yeah, but those old pros, it's hard to give it up, isn't it? That's how my dad was. Yeah. Well,
so he was. I never got to see him play when I wasn't born until 1944, so I missed all that. But I did get into some of that Boston Braves stuff, and I remember train rides. I don't remember him playing, but I remember train rides and going from city to city with him for a little bit during that time with my mother.
Right. Good memories. Good memories. Ball players are a special breed, and so are their families. Now, your dad was chosen for the Tennessee Sports Hall of Fame in 1977, rightfully so. And in 2005 was elected to the Metro Nashville Sports Hall of Fame. I think I've got those dates right. But in 1963, you probably remember this, he was Nashville Vols, even though he had 5 games, he was Nashville Vols Player of the Year at the 25th Annual Old Timers Banquet. They would always honor an old Nashville Vol over the years. They only had been doing it for 10 or 12 years, and they named him Nashville Vols Player of the Year. And he really was a beloved member of the Nashville baseball community. Your dad passed away in 1990 at the age of 71 and was buried in the Mount Olivet Cemetery here in Nashville. And I want to tell you, his career highlight, because it's very, very important. He's one of Nashville's, what I call Nashville's favorite baseball sons, along with Junior Gillum and some others. It's unmatched. It really is. I mean, I know it was short, but it got everybody in Nashville. If you read the newspapers, they knew who Johnny Beazley was, as I said earlier. And I know you're proud of him. I know his family has been proud of him. Well, look, it's been a pleasure. Let's do it again sometime.
We'll do that.
And for those that are listening, as always, I appreciate that. Thank you for listening.